Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our October 16th meeting of West Perth Council. It's not quite 7 o'clock yet, but I think it's close enough to it that maybe by the end of the night, the time will catch up with us, or we'll catch up with one or the other. So just before we begin our meeting, I would ask that we take our time and have a moment of reflection, and our guests and council members, if you so wish, we'll take a moment right now and bow our heads for a moment of reflection. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda then is confirmation of the agenda. And I don't believe there's anything further to add tonight. So it's the acceptance of the agenda as it was circulated for the weekend. So moved by Councillor Harold, seconded by Councillor Chessel. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. So does anybody have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight? Okay, as usual, if you find you're in hot water as we go along, it's declared at that time. The consent agenda is there. There are 7 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything there that anybody would like? See the hands going up. Okay, so we want either polled or clarified. Councillor Foster first.
I was wondering if we could put forward for 4.2 a letter of support for the recommendations for the Blue Waters childcare availability. It's not really maybe the right person to talk about it, but it's something that's very important in our community. I emailed with one of the ladies who's on the board for it. She thought it was pretty reasonable for what she knew.
Okay, so which one is that, Alex?
4.2.
4.2, okay.
Blue Water
child care availability in Ontario. Yes, okay. So we can, Dan, you're gonna help me out. We could support that right now and then just pass the consent agenda, couldn't we?
We could, would you like to support, just let Blue Water know, or would you like to follow suit and let everyone know in the province know?
Set it to the province as well. Okay. Would make sense to me. That's the people who are.
So do we need
for
to
help
plan out to do that? I just leave it there, we'll support it, move it, and then.
We can move the motion after
Okay, all right. Councillor Duck.
I was just going to touch on 4.2 as well myself. Obviously, with the More Homes Faster Act, we're going to see a lot more families moving into communities, and that's going to in turn create a greater need for childcare. Just to put it in perspective, with Perth Care for Kids right now, my 3-year-old, who I signed up when I found out we were pregnant, is now currently 70 to 90 spots away from getting a spot for full-time care. And my 1-year-old, same situation, is between 150 and 180 spots away from getting full-time childcare. So people that don't have access to these childcares are paying more if they are able to find it. It's just a problem that's going to get bigger and bigger as we go. So I was going to support 4.2 as well, and I totally agree with what Alex said. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so we're going to support that one.
4.2.
And then we'll approve the consent agenda, right? Or do the consent agenda first? Yeah, okay. Motion then to approve the consent agenda would be in order. Councillor Feltz and Councillor Rose, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Okay, and then we'll go to 4.2. And Councillor Foster, I believe, wants to move that, and Councillor Duck will second that. And we're going to send a letter back, a supporting letter to Blue Water and one to the province. Okay. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Good. All right. Moving on then, we do have a public meeting, and we also have a couple delegations tonight. So the first item up in the public meeting is for a zoning bylaw amendment. And it's bylaw amendment number 08-2023. John, are you doing that one for us? Okay. Sorry. So at this time, we're going to call the public meeting to order at 7:02 PM. And I'll ask Clerk Hobson for the purpose of the public meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this public meeting is to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments about a proposed amendment to bylaw 100-1998, the zoning bylaw, affecting the property described as Lot 4, Land 479, Logan Ward. If any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision made by council, they are to provide their name, mailing address, and email to clerk@westperth.com.
Okay, this is a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Dave and Jackie Wiederson. I'll now call upon John Weiss, planner for the County of Perth, to review the application and present any correspondence received. John?
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie and council and members of the public. So this zoning bylaw amendment before you, council has likely seen it already through two consent applications, B 3722 and B 3822. This public meeting has no recommendation at this time. The recommendation is to hold the public meeting. Further recommendation reports will be provided at a later date. So the property is located in the community of Bornholm, right at the red star on the slides there, and it's owned by Dave and Jackie Wiederson. Property is designated Hamlet in the Perth County Official Plan, and it's currently zoned future development and Hamlet Village Commercial Zone 2 in the West Perth zoning bylaw. So the zoning bylaw amendment, application is a condition of the consents B 3722 and B 3822. The condition is essentially to ensure that the severed portions, as you see in the the yellow portion of the slide there, are rezoned from the future development zone to a Hamlet Village residential zone. Essentially, the creation of the two new lots will be for residential purposes. So B37, which is on the left-hand side of the slide, created a lot with frontage of 44 meters on Perth Line 44 and a lot area of approximately 0.6 hectare or 0.6 acres, my apologies. And then the lot created by B3822 had a frontage of 35 meters and is approximately 0.5 acres in size. Here's some images of the property. The Wiedersons own that commercial store located on the corner. That C2 zone will remain untouched. There's no proposal right now to remove or change any of that zone. Only the created severed portions are proposed to be changed at this time. The Perth County Official Plan does permit single detached residential infill development in the Hamlet designation. Essentially, Perth County Official Plan provides that the lots need to be of adequate size and they need to meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw, which they do in this case for lot area and lot frontage. There's also adequate water services and septic requirements. Those can be achieved for the two lots as well. I want to touch upon some natural hazards that are located nearby. A portion of the lands are regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. It's the Wasserman Drain. Upper Thames provided comments during the consent stages, and those comments indicated that they had no objection. The Perth County Official Plan dictates that compatibility shall be considered when residential development is proposed in the Hamlet designation. As such, the property or the landowners that is undertook a noise study that was done at the consent stage, which has been finalized at this point. The M14 zone is the subject of the noise concerns to begin with. Essentially, the site-specific nature of the M14 zone limits the permitted uses to an equipment repair and fabrication business and accessory uses. That noise study recommended warning clauses be provided to the new owners of the two lots, but that was the end result of the noise study. Public notice, so notice of the application was given on September 26th by regular mail to adjacent landowners. We have received no comments at this time from any members of the public. But we can speak to that if anyone comes up. Staff will provide a recommendation at a further date. Thanks. Any questions I can take?
You, John. So at this stage, if you just kind of want to wait a minute, then we'll see if there is any comments from the applicant or the agent. Dave, you want to say anything at this time? Okay, very good. Anybody here this evening that wishes to speak in support of this application? Okay. Good, good. Is there anybody here in opposition to the application? Oh, June, go on. They want it for the record. Any general comments and questions from council with regards to this zoning? No? Okay. So then we'll move on. I would like to thank everybody for their comments. Should council proceed with the adoption of the zoning bylaw amendment, the notice of passing will be provided as prescribed by the Planning Act and a 20-day appeal period to the Ontario Land Tribunal. We'll now close this public meeting at 7:08. All right, our next delegation is Catherine Delitas, Chief Executive Officer of the Humane Society for Kitchener-Waterloo and Stratford Perth. And I asked her ahead of time if she didn't bring us any pups or kittens, but she says not. So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council. It truly is a pleasure to be here this evening and address you. This evening, we are going to talk about the renewal of the Pound and Animal Control Services contract. But before we get there, there we go. Before we get there, I would like to take a few minutes to share with you a little bit more about the Humane Society of Kitchener-Waterloo and Stratford Perth. At the core of our mission is a drive to strengthen the human-animal bond. This bond is a dynamic relationship between people and animal that's essential to the health and well-being of both parties. A key component of this bond is keeping people and pets together. We work hard to not only function as a shelter for animals in need, but also as a community hub for pets and their owners. Becoming a community hub is part of a strategic shift that uses people and pet first support to keep animals and their existing families together. Unfortunately, that's not always possible, and that's where our animal control and pound services come in. We are one organization with two centers. West Perth animals are housed at our Stratford Center. It is an 8,000 square foot facility. It has enclosed outdoor play area, and each dog has an indoor and outdoor space for run. It also houses a small veterinary clinic, so we are able to provide veterinary care in-house. It has an education center where we welcome the public to a variety of programs, including yoga with the animals, paint nights, day camps, PD days, and vets in training programs. Of course, we also have a very active adoption center. One of the greatest benefits is the support that the Stratford Perth Humane Society receives from our sister center in Kitchener. In 2023, our operational budget for the Stratford Perth Center is $1,620,000. The revenues to operate that facility come from a variety of areas. First, contracts. So we hold 7 municipal contracts that are serviced out of the Stratford Perth Center. And those contracts account for just over 12% of our revenues. Our adoptions account for 7%, which means that over 80% of the funds to operate the Stratford Perth Humane Center come from programs, low-cost services, and donations. Our biggest expense, as I'm sure you can imagine, are human resources. And then comes the facility. Whether we're open to the public or not, we have to have heat, we have to have air conditioning, and we have to have staff to care and feed for those animals. We've been providing animal control and pound services to the municipality since December of 2019. Prior to that, we provided pound services only. We work very hard to make reasonable attempts to return all animals to their owners. We respond to calls received during regular hours of any running at large, sick, injured, or vicious dogs. We also respond to emergency calls after hours. We provide emergency veterinary care for injured dogs. We investigate your animal-related bylaw infractions, such as running at large. We have designated animal control staff that work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have regular ongoing communication with your staff and the general public. Our facilities provide, as I mentioned, a clinic, but also hospital-grade air exchange for optimal disease control and health. Our pet care includes feeding a top brand pet. I'd like to provide you with some stats going back to 2020. When we look at animal control, that is all calls that are coming into the center specifically for West Perth. So we do welfare checks. That could be somebody calling in and saying they think perhaps an animal has been left alone in the home, or and that could be because the owner has been hospitalized, or they have moved and left an animal behind, or they may have just concerns about the care of that animal. We respond to DOAs. Enforcement calls, so those are calls from citizens who have concerns about bylaws, animal bylaws not being followed. We respond to stray animal calls, so in this case it would be dogs, and to wildlife. But wildlife is not part of your contract, and so that's why I do the little math there. So if you take out the wildlife in 2020, for example, that means that we responded to 25 calls from either the municipality directly or citizens. And then we have our animal intake. And these are animals that, in addition to responding to the calls, that may have been dropped off at our center, either brought in by your bylaw officers or perhaps members of the public. So in 2020, there were two additional dogs brought in. And you can see similar numbers for 2021. In 2022, that number dropped significantly. I can't tell you why, it just did. But certainly in 2023, these are the stats up until the end of September. You can see they are continuing to increase. We're at 13 response or calls to date, plus an additional 8 dogs coming into the center, either dropped off by your bylaw officers or a member of the public. So partner benefits. As a municipality that we provide animal welfare, animal control, and pound services to, we consider you a partner. And in that, we provide services to the members of your community at no additional cost. So they're over and above what would be in your contract. No additional cost to your taxpayers. So starting with sick and injured cats, somebody calls us, they say a cat's been hit by a car on the side of the road, we're going to come by. Sick and injured wildlife, they suspect that a raccoon might have distemper. Then again, we're going to respond to that. Emergency boarding. This is for your residents, should they have an emergency and not have somebody able to care for their domestic animals. It could be that somebody has had to go to the hospital. It could be that they've been incarcerated. There's a variety of reasons that we get individuals calling us and looking for support. So that emergency boarding is a temporary boarding at the center. We say it's for 2 weeks. We know there are times when people need it for longer. So for example, somebody who may be fleeing a domestic situation and going into a human shelter may need support for 30 days or 60 days. Then that's something we would talk to them about and support them through. And that again is at no cost to the municipality and no cost to the individual. It's provided through the charitable work that we do. We have our animal bylaw support. So if you are looking at updating your bylaws directly related to animals, we would be happy to provide you some guidance and support there. We also provide educational services for your township employees on safe dog handling, and that's provided by our certified positive reinforcement trainer. So we know that you have bylaw officers or perhaps public works individuals who are exposed to dogs when they go to various residents. We're happy to help you with training for those purposes. We also provide an emergency animal response plan to protect people and animals and property during an emergency situation by ensuring effective evacuation and care of animals. The house is caught on fire, there's animals in the house, they obviously can't stay there. Again, we would support them, bring them into our emergency care program. If you had flooding, those sort of things. So we're prepared to work on a small scale as well as larger scales to help support the animals during emergencies. We have a highly successful adoption department where adopters receive support from experts in animal welfare for the life of their pets. A very robust volunteer program. We couldn't do the work that we do without the volunteers in our communities. A very large part of our adoption program and our volunteer program is our foster program. And that's where rather than animals remain in the shelter waiting for adoption, we have them go into foster homes. We have an excellent reputation in the province, and I'm proud to say that we have an extremely low euthanasia rate. On average, it is 6%, and we only euthanize in the case of severe medical or severe behavior. In the case of medical, we're looking at the quality of life. In the case of behavior, we're looking at whether or not that animal is safe to be with people or with other animals. The clinic that we have in Stratford, as I mentioned, is very small, but we are able to provide in-house care to all of our owned animals. So once an animal comes into our care, they are with us for a 3-day hold. That's a provincial hold, at which time if they are, they could be reclaimed. And if they are not reclaimed, then they would be determined what the next step is. Typically it's adoption. In some cases, we do send them to rescues. And if it is a breed that is a banned breed in Ontario, then we at our expense try to get it transferred out of the province. So most recently, we had a couple of our staff drive a dog to Quebec in order to get it its next home. Once an animal comes into our care, within 24 hours, it is provided a wellness check. That means we're just doing a very quick but thorough evaluation of the animal to make sure that it's not in crisis for the next 3 days while it's waiting for its owner to come. During that time, if we do have to provide medical care, then we will, but it does have to be at an emergency level. On our staff team, our medical team in Stratford, we have 1 full-time veterinarian, 1 full-time registered vet tech, and 2 full-time vet assistants. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the greatest supports that we have in Stratford is that we're able to transfer animals between our 2 centers. So if we have a case where we have an animal who needs more care than we're able to provide it in Stratford, then it can be transferred by our team to the animal hospital that we have in Kitchener. And an example of that, you may have seen it in the media recently, was Sylvia. She came in, or we got a call that we had a dog hit by a car. When we picked Sylvia up, she was in very poor condition. She was picked up in one of the townships in Perth, brought to Stratford, evaluated, stabilized, and transferred to Kitchener, where we have X-ray machines, ultrasound machines, additional equipment. It was quickly recognized that she not only had a dislocated hip, but also a broken leg. At that point, we also have resources, veterinarians that will come in and do emergency surgeries at a level that perhaps our team doesn't normally do. So in the case of this particular dog, she required orthopedic surgery by an orthopedic specialist. So that's one of the great benefits of having the sister shelter. Really proud to say that in March of 2019, we opened a low-cost, high-volume spay and neuter clinic at our Stratford Center. It is restricted at this point to cats only. We hope to be able to open it up again to dogs, but I can tell you that on average, we are seeing 45 cats a week coming through that program. So most vet clinics would operate in a morning on perhaps 2 or 3 cats. Our team will provide a spay or neuter to cats, 20 to 22 cats in the morning. And again, we have the support of volunteers to help us with recovery, but it's definitely a very different type of care. It's very high quality, but it's almost like a, I'm trying to think of the word. They come in, we have staff that prepare the animal, goes on the table to the vet. The vet does her surgery in about 3.5 minutes. That animal leaves the table, goes to another team, the next one's brought in. And so that's how we're able to do so many surgeries in such a short period of time. We are currently running that low-cost spay and neuter clinic twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. It is open to anybody. They can register online. And as I mentioned, it's very low cost compared to what somebody would be paid at their regular vet. We also have the trap neuter return program, a barn cat program. Both of those programs provide colony caretakers and individuals who have barn cats with very, very low spay and neuter services to ensure that they help control the pet population in their barns. And as I said before, we transfer any more difficult cases to our Kitchener Center. So looking to the future, we are currently in a quiet stage of a $6 million capital campaign. That campaign is called Better Together campaign. This campaign's mostly affecting our KW Center, but I have some exciting news about how it will support your municipality. So currently we have pet pantries in both centers. The Stratford one is located right in our animal center, but our Kitchener one operates out of shipping containers. So it will get a permanent home in our new building. And this, when I say a new building, it's an additional building to our center in Kitchener. Our current animal hospital in Kitchener, because we are doing more and more public services, we need to put in a proper reception area and an intake area for those animals that are coming into the center. So that will take place. We have an education center in our current building that is going to be expanded to double the size that it currently is. And that will allow us to provide more programs and services. And then, of course, we've grown over the years that we've been located at that building in Kitchener. It's been 40 years that we've been in that building. We have staff who live in closets and 3 and 4 desks in rooms that really were developed for one. So we're providing office and storage space that's much needed. But the most exciting part for you is that we are going to purchase a mobile unit for veterinary outreach. There we go. So this is what it's going to look like. It's not the exact unit. This unit will allow us to go outside of our brick and mortar. We know that there are individuals in your community that can't get to our Stratford Center. And we want to be able to come and support them right here in West Perth. So our mobile unit will improve community access to preventive wellness and spay and neuter services. And in some areas, provide the only access residents may have to low-cost options. It'll increase capacity for services by shifting certain programs to our mobile unit, which will allow more capacity in both our brick and mortar vet clinics. It'll support the veterinary outreach program, as well as our social service partners to care for vulnerable pets. We will operate across 14 municipalities, travel up to 18,000 kilometers per year, and reach communities as far as 50 minutes away from our animal centers. The timeline, As I mentioned, we're currently in the quiet phase that launched in March of 2023. By July of 2024, our goal is to have raised 4.1 million of the $6 million needed. We'll launch our public campaign and break ground, and we'll place our order for our mobile clinic. To date, we've raised over 50%. In February of 2025, our new building will be ready for move-in. Remaining funds will have been raised, and phase 2, which is the renovations of our clinic in Kitchener, will begin. All of this will be completed by May of 2025, and our mobile unit will be on the road. By 2026, our mobile unit will be on the road 4 days a week and 44 weeks of the year. So now, I guess probably the reason I'm here tonight, or the reason you need to hear from me tonight, is that your contract comes to an end on October the 31st. I would preface by saying that I think it's been a very successful partnership, and we certainly want to be able to continue to provide those services to you. So since we started providing both animal control and pound services in 2019, at that time, the rate was 0.70 cents per capita. And each year following, the only increase you saw as per our contract was CPI. We'd like to move your contract to a year end of December 31st, and we'll extend the current rate for the remainder of 2023. The current rate, so each year that the CPI has been added, brings us to 0.778 cents per capita. So the 2024 contract price will be based on a population increase as per the 2021 census from Statistics Canada, the base rate of 0.778 per capita, plus the CPI index for 2023. We're offering a 5-year, 2-month contract that would end in December 1st or December 31st, 2028, again, with only an annual CPI increase. Any questions?
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Questions for Catherine? Nicholas, go ahead.
Mayor McKenzie, does per capita mean the 77 cents times every person in West Perth, so man, woman, and child?
As per your Statistics Canada number. So I think 2021, that number is 9,038 people.
So I was just gonna let council be aware that currently we're at 6,600, and then with the adjustment for CPI, it would go up to $7,030.
Other questions for Catherine?
Would anybody like a puppy or a kitten? We have lots. We've been at capacity most of this year.
Okay, I want to thank you for your presentation. Very informative, to say the least, and certainly you left us with some thought to carry on to what we do down the road in the future. So I think the contract that we've had with you people has worked relatively well. Certainly, I know in the past we've had different services that we've used, and I have heard no problems with what we're doing now. So that speaks well of your Humane Society.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next delegation is from Broadhaven, Broadhaven Chamber of Commerce. And I believe Robert is going to be the spokesman for this group. You need a puppy, Robert?
Pardon me?
Do you need a puppy?
Actually, Krista has 10 of them at home.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council, and staff for allowing us to come here tonight. I'll keep it brief anyway. Historically, through our 65 years as a community organization, we have asked as little as possible from West Perth. There were incidents in the past and more recently that we were affected during the COVID years that we asked for the government assistance available through the municipality of West Perth. This helped us meet our financial obligations during the shutdown, and we are very thankful for and appreciative of your help. Brodigan Chamber of Commerce has a history of self-sufficiency and has a relationship with the surrounding community. We have given financially to both the Seaforth and Stratford hospitals, as well as both Huron and Perth hospices and the food bank, and we have volunteered and given to other charitable organizations. As a volunteer organization, we pride ourselves with fundraising for major projects such as our standby generator, contributions coming from memorial and personal donations, grant applications, and our own events. As you know, the facility now is designated as a community emergency warming center. The community support that we receive is vital for our survival, especially now with the dramatic increase in inflation. Our hydro bill on average is over $1,000 per month, despite replacing every inside and outside light fixture with the newest energy efficient lights, etc. I come here tonight to ask that our memorial and personal donations that the Brodigan Chamber of Commerce being held in an account by the municipality of West Perth be designated and used towards the capital expense of our hydro bill. We request that this be ongoing annually and any monies in this account be paid out at least annually. It is our understanding that West Perth must send out the thank yous for donations on our behalf. In the past, we have done that, but we are thankful we are thankful that you will do that for us. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay, questions for Robert with regards to that request? I guess normally when we think of capital, and we had a conversation
Yeah.
before, we think of, bricks and mortar, or, you were talking of a digital sign
Yeah.
at one time
We,
too.
we just don't know the time frame that we can raise
Yeah.
that much money but the money, we don't want it just sitting there doing nothing.
No.
We'd like to keep it going, keep the facility running.
So do you not get enough from your rentals to pay? Like, I would think the hydro bill would be just an expense that you would, monthly
Yeah,
expense that you would have?
some months not.
Okay, yeah,
Depends, like the summer months usually do. Then it's a lull, then you have Christmas, family get-togethers and that, but I guess we still haven't raised our rates, so we could, but then we'd make maybe our facility a little outpriced if we actually had to price it to where we could make the rentals pay for
Mm.
for everything.
well, you gotta be competitive too.
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
right. And that's why we have as many events as we can, but we are limited by volunteers, so it seems like our volunteer pool is dwindling, so we try to keep as many events going as possible, but I know in the future it's going to be difficult, so.
Okay. Questions for Robert then? No questions? So basically, I think we have be the first one here, isn't it, Dan? Nope, it's not the first one. It's the last one, is it? Operating costs. Yeah. So, we had three options here because we weren't sure what you were going to ask for. So what we have here then is that, and what you're wanting, I'm just going to clarify with you that you want to approve the donations received for Broadhaven Community Center in 2023 to go towards the 2023 operating costs incurred by the Broadhaven Chamber of Commerce. And that's what your wish
Yeah,
is.
basically, but our hydro is our biggest
Yeah,
expense. So
yeah, no, I
That's why
understand.
that was brought up.
Yeah.
That's
But I
the one
think-
that's Achilles heel a lot of times is that hydro bills.
But this wording would cover would
Yeah.
cover that because it's the operating cost. So is any questions with what we're doing here? Okay, if not, then the motion would be that the council municipality of West Perth approve that donations received for the Broadhaven Community Center in 2023 go towards 2023 operating costs incurred by the Broadhaven Chamber of Commerce. We have a mover and seconder for that motion. Moved by Councillor Duck, seconded by Councillor Fournier. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Dean, sorry.
Sorry, your worship, one question. So this would be for 2023 only.
Well,
if-
in
if
my
there was-
ask, it'd be nice if it just carry on, but unless I have to come every year to do this, but. Oh, I know you do,
Well,
but
this- but the motion was clear. It's for 2023 only. So if there was
Yeah.
an ask in 2024, then we would be,
if
we
it's
would-
possible to have it be
we would be
annual
asked again.
too, or.
I think there's a staff member has a comment.
Yeah, Wendy, go ahead.
Just to, for clarification, the Canada Revenue Agency requires that the funds do not be a conduit of funds, so we can't flow through the funds without care and control from council. So it has to be council directed approval. So I would recommend every year that it gets approved.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the clarification.
Would that mean that I need to come or just talk to Dan or
Just a
somebody?
simple letter, an email.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, phone call to Dan.
Yeah, because we
we
talked
were-
before, so.
Yeah.
Sort of brought me up to speed on a lot of things, so.
Yeah,
You're always welcome, though.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
okay, so the motion, I think we got a mover and a seconder, but I don't think we voted on it. Okay, so all those in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Very good. Okay, moving on, our next item is the planning department, and it's a part lot control application on property that the application is by Daryl Eckert. And John, you're going to walk us through this one as well.
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie and Council. This application is for part lot control. Its number is PLC 03-2023. It's for a property located on Kenton Street in Mitchell. Plan 44M-35. It's lot 12. And it's part of Wimpole Street. At the red stars you can see on the slide as well. So Daryl Eckert, on behalf of the owners, Mike and Beth Eckert, is requesting that exemption from part lot control be granted for the registered plan 44R 6161, parts 1 and 2 in the municipality of West Perth for 2 units of a semi-detached dwelling. So if approved, the exemption from part lot control will allow the owner of the lots to register the reference plan as seen on the slide. So that each of the semi-detached units is considered a separate and conveyable lot. So the subject property is designated residential in the Mitchell Ward official plan. Subject property was formerly a municipal street road allowance. It was Wimpole Street, and that was deemed surplus to the needs of West Perth. The former municipal street allowance was not zoned. However, the zoning of the subject land shall follow the zoning along Kenton Street, which is an R3 zone, as per the interpretation section of the municipality of West Perth zoning bylaw. Specific reference to 441 and 455 if anybody's looking for reference. The development does conform with the requirements of that R3 zone. The County of Perth is the delegated approval authority under the Planning Act for bylaws to remove part lot control. The removal of part lot control to establish lot lines between units of a semi-detached dwelling is an acceptable form of lot creation under the plan. Once the exempting bylaw is approved, surveyor's reference plan can then be registered at the land registry office. So this bylaw shall be in effect for 2 years. Fast. Planning department does recommend approval at this time. These two images show that construction has occurred. One there and one there, and I can take any questions.
Okay, any questions for John on this particular application? Andrew, go ahead.
You said 2 units, but the document says 4.
Through you, Mayor, it's going to be 2 units, so maybe that's an error.
Oh, interesting.
Apologies.
Not a problem.
Anybody else? Okay, if there's no further question, we do have a recommendation here. And the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth approve the application by Darrell Eckert for the exemption of part lot control on lands described as Plan 44M35, Lot 12, Plan 339, Part Whipple Street, and RP 44R 6036, Part 3, further described as Parts 1 and 2 on Plan 44R 6161, Mitchell Ward in the Municipality of West Perth, and forwarded to the County of Perth for approval, and that approval bylaw be provided by the Municipality of West Perth to be registered on title. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Deputy Mayor Trinkowski, seconded by Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you, John. Okay, we have nothing from the building official or the fire chief, librarian, and the operations manager. So Darcy, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie and Council. First report you have in front of you is the Dublin Lions permanent liquor license. A little background on that. The Dublin Lions came to me inquiring about the interest of doing the permanent liquor license. So this is a permanent liquor license that would be at the Dublin Hall. They would then control all the alcohol events at the Dublin Hall. I spoke to our AGCO rep. He is in favor. He actually presented at the Dublin Lions meeting and was in big favor of the Dublin Lions Club doing this. It allows someone for them to go to and control liquor events and makes them feel better about what's going on. So I would say this is a pretty good opportunity for the municipality to have another one of our facilities as a permanent liquor license. Actually, Broadhagen that was here earlier, they have a permanent liquor license at their facility to do the same thing. The reason why I'm looking for council to authorize is because it is our building and the AGCO will want us to do some paperwork to say that we are in approval of the permanent liquor license. I'll gladly take any questions.
Okay, questions for Darcy on that? Councillor Duck?
Thanks through your worship. Darcy, with any sort of incidents that may happen or occur with it being their license, who's kind of liable with that kind of stuff? Would it be on them as it's their license or us if it's our buildings?
So the actual liquor service would be under them, so they would be responsible for that. As anything in joint and several liability, we're still going to be liable being at our facility, but we're only going to be liable for the portion that is our fault. But the liquor liability would be on the Dublin Lions Club, and they would have to have a responsible person that signed off on the liquor license.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a recommendation then that the Council of Municipality of West Perth support the Dublin Lions Club in their application for a permanent liquor license, and that the council authorizes the clerk to complete any necessary documentation for AGCO. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Fournier. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thanks, Darcy. The Ketterson Park.
Yes, the next one is the Ketterson Park. So the report is in regards to the Mitchell Grizzlies and the Mitchell Coyotes donation that was put into reserve. It was put into reserve earmarked for the pavilion project, and I think it was put in 2019. So we are just looking to move that fund out of reserve and into the capital project of the pavilion now that it's built.
As a little update, the Ketterson Park donations currently, we're under agreement for right at the $126,000 mark. That is 3 to 5 year agreement, so we won't see all that money until the 3 5-year agreements. Like a lot of them are $1,000 a year, or $1,500 a year. But we do have agreements for 126,000 right now. Obviously, our fundraising goal is 400,000, so we're still short of that. But most of the money is in the naming rights, which will hopefully be a yearly contribution, not only for the 3 to 5 years to continue on, but we are in agreement for 126 right now.
Okay, thanks, Darcy. Any questions with regards to that? And the update? Okay, we do have a recommendation that the council municipality of West Perth authorize the transfer of the 2019 donations received from the Mitchell Coyotes and the Mitchell Grizzlies in the amount of 10,500 into the Keterson Park Capital Project. And the numbers are there for the general ledger, but Wendy can look after those numbers. So we have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Harold and Councillor O'Donnell. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thanks, Darcy. And Wendy, you're going to talk about procurement review.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. So the procurement review. Can you just click on the report? So we kind of looked at 4 different vendors, and LXM was the one that kind of showed to staff that they would be able to provide a better service, an all-around encompassing project without any pluses, and also offer a 1-year support on signing. So, the review is coming to look at the update the bylaw, which was written in 2018. So we'd like to look at some of the values that are in there as far as procurement levels, and also looking at trade agreements and making sure that we're in compliance with all trade agreements. So if there's any questions on that report, I'll gladly take them.
Any questions? Nicholas, go ahead.
Mayor McKenzie, I was wondering if Wendy could speak specifically to what would be the deliverables, maybe a little bit more specifically, the deliverables that we could expect for that $47,000.
Yep, so they'll look at the bylaw. So the bylaw is a smaller portion of that amount. The biggest portion is the templates that they would offer. There was no limit. So some of the other vendors had limits on how many templates they would provide. So basically it would be documenting our quotes, our RFPs and RFQs, giving them standard languages in them. So the front ending of the agreement and the back end of the agreement would be standard across West Perth, versus now we find people kind of take from different municipalities and kind of blend it in, and we're finding there's inconsistencies. So that would create a consistency template for us. I think also trying to think of what other deliverables. Dan, I don't know if you want to help me out. If you can think of a deliverable that was in there.
Yeah, training was a big
Oh, yeah.
portion of it as well. Not only for staff, but we're looking to bring council in as well and get training throughout the process. As council's aware, the bylaw, date of the bylaw, and there's certain thresholds in there and various trade agreements that we have to be in compliance with. So educating council on where all those thresholds are and what all those rules are will just help council when it comes time to actually look at the bylaw and where council's comfortable with what limits and what type of procurements for what certain situations and procedures, I think.
Yeah, and a manual. There was going to be a manual provided. So it'd be good for onboarding staff, succession planning. The manual would have kind of templates and how to use what in what circumstances, and it would be related to the bylaw.
If I can follow up, Walter, does a template save staff time, make it easier for a staff person that is going to issue an RFP or an RFQ, that it is just a fillable template that they can save half the time that they normally would preparing an RFP or RFQ. Is that the kind of template that you're talking to?
I think the template would be more for bids and tenders online. So it would talk about WSIB and insurance. So it would set our thresholds and be consistent. So once having the review, it would set that for us and help us be consistent. I'm not sure that it's going to save us time in that sense, but it'll put us at a higher level for procurement and making sure we're not exposing the municipality from a risk point of view.
Other,
Yeah, thank you, your worship, through you. What's the timeline, Wendy, for the firm to come in and do their review, rework the bylaw, and like to get the bylaw, the new bylaw up and into effect? How long will that take? I realize the training and that part of it will be ongoing throughout the 2024, but how long before the new bylaw is, what would come before council for our review and acceptance?
Don't have the exact timeline for that. Just in dealing with the different vendors, some of them had coded hours and weeks. I think this firm's available. So she would be able to, my hope would be we'd have it in place for the 2024 capital budget process, is what I'm hoping for.
anybody else? Where are they from?
I do not know. They're in Ontario.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, like in this day and age, with internet and technical availability, you can be anywhere, you know. I just wondered if they were anywhere local or not.
I think Toronto, but
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
well, that would make
I think
sense.
both firms were either Toronto
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, okay, well, fair enough.
Looks like
Um,
Ottawa. It looks like Ottawa.
Okay, good, yeah. Well, we have lawyers working for us from Ottawa, so can't feel bad. Okay, anything else from members of council? If not, we do have a recommendation here. And the recommendation is the Council Municipality of West Perth directs staff to proceed with procurement review with LXM Law. And that the procurement review project be funded up to $50,000 from the tax stabilization reserve. We have a mover and seconder for that particular motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kankowski, seconded by Councillor Rose. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thanks, Wendy. The next is land sale on Georgina Street. Dan, I'll let you walk us through that one.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, council. This is a matter that's been before council a couple times now, and we're back to finalize and get authorization to enter into the agreement of purchase and sale for the land sale. Actually, sorry, it is the Georgina Street sale. Additionally, we're looking for council to declare the property as surplus, and we have later on a bylaw to stop up and close the road. If there's any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them.
Where are we at? There was an environmental assessment to be done on that property, wasn't there?
Yeah, we've done a request for quotes and we've awarded it. I want to say about $5,000 or $6,000 right now for phase 2.
Yeah, yes, Mayor and Council, it was about $6,000, and I believe the work is going to start here this almost immediately this fall, so they can get the work done.
Okay, good to know. All right, any other questions? Councillor Foster?
Will there be any easements going through there still? Because I remember Rick talked about how there would be maybe utilities through there still.
Yeah, that's correct. There would be the easement through there for the hydro utility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good question. Andrew, go ahead.
Through your worship, why so little? 70,000 seems actually like an awful lot less than you built. That's a fairly large piece of land if you broke it into lots.
This was a number previously brought to council and council had authorized it. It is an old road, so there are some nuances there that would devalue the property. And really it's mostly beneficial to the adjacent landowner, who's the same owner on both sides of the property. So to put it into lots, you'd have to be getting access. And I don't quite think it potentially would work that simply.
I think the number that we established there was based on information from the operations manager as to what was in the road and how much we had tied up in it and gravel and whatever. And that's, I think, how we arrived at that number. But you're right, like you could only put, well, technically you probably only put a house at each end. And then you're left with an industrial area in the center. So that's the history of it. And yet, okay, we do have a motion here that municipality of West Perth declare the lands described as Georgina Street Plan 339 Mitchell between Wellington Street and Arthur Street, municipality of West Perth, county of Perth as surplus. And that the council authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign and seal all necessary documents required for the sale of the lands to 2667899 Ontario Inc. and Cody Dunsmore for 70,000. Mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Fournier. Questions, Doug? No? Okay, all those in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. The next item up then is the Housing Accelerator Fund. Dan's good doing that. Yep. Okay, Dan.
Thank you again, your worship. Just wanted to come tonight and provide council with, I guess, a fairly lengthy overview of the Housing Accelerator Fund and where we are to date. Really, the update I have is that there is no update at this point in time to make it short and sweet, but provided council with all of the information there, our anticipated scoring on our initiatives, and just an update on where we can see approximate funding per unit based on our projections. We've also provided council with the projections that we received from Watson, and those were done countywide. And really the probably worth noting is we had discussed previously the definition of affordability, affordable homes, and it looks like through legislative changes to the Development Charges Act that we're likely going to be told what that definition is. But right now that definition is really hinging on a bulletin that's yet to be released. So we can't actually identify numbers or anything like that yet for what affordable means for our community. So that's important to note, just the changes to development charges, because we are going through development charges bylaw review, and as well just for the update on half. If there are any questions, I can certainly try to answer them.
I was wondering if you had any idea how many municipalities ended up being able to get their stuff in on time.
I don't know the total number of applicants received at the time of writing. 2 were awarded, and I haven't seen that another one's been awarded yet.
Deputy Mayor Pinkowski.
Through you, your worship. So I guess my question is, do we know when the province will officially declare the new definition of affordable housing? Because it would be quite ironic if we were waiting for that definition before we could institute any kind of programming accordingly.
I actually don't have a timeline. We had our meeting with Watson. I did ask the question if they had any inside information, but everyone's really waiting for that bulletin, and that's going to dictate how the community's lumped in regionally, locally, and then that'll dictate the data that you use. So unfortunately, at this time, I don't have a timeline.
Follow-up question then, is there someone that the province that we could approach to get a better sense of the timing. Whether it's through our own MPP or someone at the housing ministry or other levels of provincial government.
I think there's lots of options available to council if council would like to. We do have our MPP. We could reach out there through the mayor if council so wish.
That would be my first place to go, or that would be my suggestion, is to approach our MPP and ask them that question.
Councillor Fournier.
Through your worship, I may have missed a step here. How exactly are these funds to be disposed? $39,000 per unit, is that something that a developer applies for? Like they're putting in 5 houses, they apply for 5 blocks times 39,000?
That's all up to council. So we've identified a number of initiatives. As noted, we're looking at releasing an RFP for the community improvement plan, and that would essentially be an incentivizing piece. So we would bring in a consultant to develop that plan, and they would work with council and the community to decide that, for example, if there's 30,000 per unit, 10,000 per unit is going to go back to the developer or something like that. I'm just guessing, but that's all of a decision of council. And then from there, we can prioritize other funds to be used as council directs. So there was some restrictions on how the funds can be used, but essentially if successful, we would bring back the housing initiatives plan that council previously saw and start to just iron out where council's priorities are.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Recommendation that we have is that the council municipality of West Perth receive the Housing Accelerator Fund information report. Mover and second for that, Councillor Rose, Councillor Phelps, all those in favor? Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
Were we not going to go any further with Dean's thoughts or suggestions, or nobody did any other comments? We leave that where it is.
Well, like with regards to contacting the MPP, yeah, we'll just follow through with that. Like that'll happen like that. That's what I took, that'll be an automatic. Yeah. No. So we were just in the middle of a vote here, weren't we? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Push the wrong button. So the next report is Briggs report, and it's the MMAH Housing Affordability Task Force report. So Greg, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot of material here to be put in front of council. Really the gist of it is the mayor received a letter from the new Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and put forward the Housing Affordability Task Force report. It had been sitting in abeyance since 2022, and asked, actually directed municipalities to review the task force, the 55 task force recommendations. And this came on September the 15th, and directed municipalities to have a conversation with their council. So there's 444 municipalities having this conversation as we speak. And for us to look at the 55 recommendations, and for our municipality to put forth what we felt was our top 5 recommendations of the 55. So as far as I guess a bit of method to our madness here, as far as us selecting the 5, we had a conversation within the staff group, and we tried to focus in on what typically are the roles of the various levels of government in housing. And so typically the federal government Housing is a provincial responsibility. And there's sort of two sides to this coin. There's the housing piece, and then there's the approvals and planning piece of this particular measure. The federal government typically provides funding assistance, and it typically flows through the province to come to wherever it's going to be spent and divvied up. If you read the media and take a look at the media these days, there's a lot of clamoring going on about wanting to reach down into the municipal level and tell local communities about how they should conduct their business, increasing densities and those types of things, whether or not it's appropriate for every community. So what we did is taking a look at the roles, not necessarily the traditional roles, but as far as who's in what lane. We looked at it and said, typically the feds deal with funding. The second thing is that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, they deal with funding items as well, but they also have a responsibility under the Planning Act and under the sort of the regulation and review of applications that go before various tribunals. And then the municipalities, they deal specifically with boots on the ground, and we look after the Planning Act requirements, but we also look after the Ontario Building Code as far as how, so our building inspectors are involved, making sure that things are built safely. So when we looked at that, we said, from a perspective about the top 5, what would be what we thought was our most important thing. And as you can see here, this is how we got to the recommendations of the top 5. Have the federal government implement an urban, rural, and northern Indigenous housing strategy, right? So start with the strategy of the feds. A lot of these particular affordable housing units, it's a challenge to have them built because of the profit motives of the development community. When they build, they want to make as much money per square foot. So typically you have to look for other sources of funding that are going to allow them to build and still get their profits out of those particular units. And so this came along as far as recommendation 42, provide provincial and federal loan guarantees for the purpose of built rental and affordable ownership projects, right? So allow them to put some money in. So rather than having to go to their traditional lender, they could get money that could come in order to go towards affordable units. The third recommendation we looked at, and the feds in the province right now are in a little bit of a, I guess, a hand-wringing process around. We've heard about it in the media around HST rebate back towards builders of affordable units. So they're working towards that regulation as we speak. The other aspect of it is, from our perspective, is we do e-permitting here in West Perth, and what they're asking for is that being able to collect that data. So our data goes directly to MPAC, right? When we issue a building permit, which speeds up the process from a taxation perspective. But as far as having good collaborative data across the province coming from those, not all municipalities have these e-permitting systems. So there's a lag in getting information from data back to make decisions at the senior levels of government. The last item that we looked at was providing funding to increase staffing as far as adjudicators and case managers. There's a significant backlog at the Ontario Land Tribunal. We're talking years at that particular thing. And so we're asking them, so any delay in the development community is not caused by the municipality, it's caused by these particular structures. So invest some money there, provincial government, and hire more case managers and move the flow through the system. So those are what we had recommended were the top 5, and those are sort of some of the reasons why we chose that, rather than sort of getting into the weeds that says we should increase density, we should be doing a bunch of different things. The last thing I'll say, and I pointed it out in my report, and included in the AMO letter to the minister is that this particular task force didn't have any municipal representation at all. It was all developer representation. So they're trying to impose upon local governments who are responsible for this, this very, very important side of the business. But there was nobody sitting at the table, and Amos pointed that out. So that was all the paper that was provided to council, and if council has any questions or requests, I'd certainly be pleased to answer it.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Questions for Greg and his report? Spent a lot of time on that. It also has to go in today.
Deadline is this October the 16th, so if council so chooses and approves the recommendation, it'll be sent forthwith to the ministry after that vote. Thank you so much.
Any discussion at all? Okay, we want to get it sent away then, I guess. So we'll read the recommendation here. It's a little lengthy, but we'll read it all. The municipality of West Perth direct the clerk to send correspondence to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs with the following top 5 municipality of West Perth recommendations. Recommendation number 40, call for the federal government to implement an urban, rural, and northern indigenous housing strategy. Recommendation number 42 was provide provincial and federal loan guarantees for the purpose of built rental, affordable rental, and affordable ownership projects. Recommendation 36, recommend that the federal government and federal governments update HST rebate to reflect the current home prices and begin indexing the thresholds to housing prices, and that the federal government match the provincial 75% rebate and remove any clawback. Our fourth recommendation is number 50. Fund the adoption of consistent municipal e-permitting systems and encourage the federal government to match funding, fund the development of common data architecture standards across municipalities and provincial agencies, and require municipalities to provide their zoning bylaws with open data standards. Set in an implementation goal of 2025, and make funding conditional on established targets. And our fifth recommendation is number 30, provide funding to increase staffing, adjudicators and case managers, provide market competitive salaries, outsource more matters to mediators, and set shorter time targets. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Phelps, seconded by Councillor Fournier. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. All right, the next item then is correspondence. First one is, I guess, and the only one really, is from the Royal Canadian Legion Mitchell branch with regards to Remembrance Day. And traditionally, there is wreaths for each ward, and for the town, and for Earth, am I right, Nicholas? And for the county, I think that covers it. So I know some of you sent your choices in, but we'll maybe just firm it up here tonight, and Dan or somebody can keep track of that. So we'll start with Logan Ward, you're going to do that, okay? And remember this, and then next year we'll flip it back and forth so that everybody gets it. Yeah. Okay. Fullerton Ward. Okay. Alex. Okay. Hibbert Ward. Andrew. Good. And it's a Saturday, so it makes it a little easier. The Mitchell Ward. Murray. Okay. So that's got them all. So then, Nicholas, you'll look after Earth. And I can do the West Perth one. Dean, you could do the county one. We got any left? I think that's got it. Everybody's good with that? And then next year whoever the other delegate is from that particular ward, we'll switch it up. Let them do it. Okay, so the recommendation is that the municipality of West Perth accept the correspondence as information. Mover and seconder for that. Councillor O'Donnell and seconded by Councillor Phelps. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Council reports. Deputy Mayor Dean Trentowski, the Upper Thames 2024 budget.
Yes, thank you, your worship. So following up from last meeting, I gave the high level view of the initial discussions held by Upper Thames Board regarding the 2024 budget. They're looking at a significant shortfall and currently in the magnitude of 1.5 million. And that equates to a potential increase to the West Perth levy of about 24-25%. So in dollars, we're looking at, well, currently our levy is $197,000 in that neighborhood. So we're looking close to a 50%, or sorry, $50,000 increase for 2024. We have a board meeting on October 31st. The budget will be on the agenda. I'm more than happy to bring comments back from West Perth to add to that discussion. I'll take those comments now or at any time between now and the meeting on the 31st. One suggestion from our last council meeting was to have or to ask someone from Upper Thames to address council regarding the budget. I'm guessing that still stands. So I will forward my request through the chair that staff member, presumably the general manager from Upper Thames, would come to council so that council could ask questions of the staff at Upper Thames about the budget. But if there's any other comments or questions at this time, I will gladly take them.
Okay, any follow-up for Dean on that? Councillor Rose.
Do we have any information on how the other conservation areas, what they're asking for? Just so we can see if there's consistency or.
Thanks, Councillor Rose. The answer is no. We won't have information from other conservation authorities at this time. That question was asked at the Board of Directors at our September meeting, if it wasn't August. The response was, do not compare apples with oranges, that no two conservation authorities will be similar. As insofar as the impacts of the new regulations on the conservation authorities, like I can take, for example, what Maitland does or what Ausable does in terms of their scope will be different than Upper Thames. Upper Thames has, for example, Upper Thames has 3 water control structures. Glengall, or sorry, I apologize to the Fullerton people. I almost said a bad word. Wildwood, Pittock, and Fanshawe dams. Those are 3 significant dams that the other our neighboring conservation authorities do not have. So you're looking at Upper Thames is a different organization in that sense. So the needs are different than the other 2. So it becomes it's not a fair and equal comparison in that sense. So that's why I said don't compare apples to oranges, because they will be different.
Murray, go ahead.
I guess the only reason I asked that, if memory serves me right, was it 4 years ago we had this talk? Whatever it was, I guess 4 years ago. And at that time, I think Upper Thames was the only one that got more, that we okayed more money for, if memory serves. I know they got more money. I just can't remember if the other ones went for more as well. I was just asking.
I can't remember, Murray.
Well, I remember we had quite a discussion about it.
No. Nicholas?
Your worship, I might encourage Deputy Mayor Trentowski at the Upper Thames to you spoke a lot about needs to meet these new regulations. and this extra monies to make that happen in terms of human resources. And I think it was discussed a little bit at the last council meeting, but rather than exactly the new resources, maybe take a little bit of a holistic approach to solving the problem, rather than dumping all brand new human resources into solve these needs to meet the new regulations. There might be some other holistic or innovative way to use the resources that you have now, whether it is other resources that are no longer in that core mandate to meet some of these new needs. That would be my suggestion.
So if I hear you correctly, then Councillor Vink, just try and redeploy existing staff members to try and pick up the additional workload. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, some that wouldn't be in that core mandate that you have today, that take a holistic view of it rather than just the plop new resources to get the job done. It's easy for me to say over on this side of the table.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. That's the kind of information I'm looking for. Thank you.
Just, Mr. Mayor, members of council, so I guess in trying to respond back to your question, Councillor Rose, this is the first year of the conservation authorities bringing a full operating and capital budget back to councils under their new mandate. So I would expect, and I'm not certainly not speaking, of ill will towards the organizations, but we're going to see different numbers coming through just because they've had to change their operations and their operational structure. So I wouldn't be surprised to see other, as we get our levies coming forward, our draft levies, that we'll see numbers that we're not used to. So I'll just sort of leave it at that.
Sorry, I'll just add a note for council is that we have invited General Manager Tracy Annette to our council meeting to discuss the cost apportioning agreement. So we actually haven't entered into our services agreement yet with Upper Thames. So they're our last outstanding. I guess I would just say it seems like it all fits nicely to be reviewing everything at that time. So we'll advise council when she agrees to come.
Okay, but yeah, we have yet to do or to finalize the cost apportioning agreement, but that's only like kind of like the smaller piece of the puzzle. The overall budget is the larger piece. Like the cost apportioning deals with category 3 services. There's category 1 and 2, which are more significant impact in terms of the overall duration, like flood control, flood structures, flood mapping. Those things are kind of in the pecking order. That's why they're category 1 and 2 versus category 3, like educational programs or recreational services at Wildwood as an example. So.
Anybody else? Oh, Bill, sorry.
What happens if we don't do anything?
Well, then the default, through you, your worship, the default is that whatever the board decides in terms of the budget, like that will be it. But the board chair specifically asked that we go back to our respective councils and get feedback and bring that back to the next board of directors meeting, which will be October 31st. Like I've already said that 24%, that's a non-starter. Anything in a double digits will be a non-starter. But their struggle will be to find, as Councillor Vink has pointed out about redeploying staff, is to find the staff and to meet the timelines laid out by the provincial government. The Conservation Authority knew that they had this work to do. The crux of the matter is that the province is accelerating the timeline. So in order to produce more quicker, then you need to put more resources into it. And that's why when I submitted those reports for review, that's why you see they're asking, or they're suggesting that they need 9 extra full-time employees between now and 2025, 2026, 2027 timeline to make these changes happen. So it's an accelerated schedule is what's behind it.
Just a question then, Dean. So like flood mapping, once it's done, what's that person do then? Like when we hire 9 people to do that, and also just a comment, if the provincial government's downloading all of this stuff, why aren't they funding some of this stuff instead of loading it back to the municipalities?
No, those are good questions. Like, yeah, exactly. What do they do once those tasks are done? The flood mapping, we were told, hasn't been updated in a long time, which I found I couldn't believe that when I heard that, but that's what they said. The flood mapping part of it needs a significant upgrade. What was your other question or comment?
Just if they're downloading these regulations onto them, and why isn't the provincial government helping them out with some funding instead of downloading it to the municipalities? Because it's their mandates. And I do understand, like reading through the insurance industry, that the government's looking at flood funding for those people that can't get flood insurance now. So they're trying to figure out how much it's going to cost them when there is a flood and who isn't insured. So they're trying to figure out that, and they're downloading it to these people to figure out who's going to be in the floodplains.
And I raised that point because I think it was in the August meeting, there's a graph that shows the provincial level of funding has been flatlined for since the early 90s. So I made that point right away. I was like, why isn't somebody raising the red flag, like, and saying we need more money? Like, we just had the housing, CAO Greg's housing presentation asking for more funding, more support. So confusion creates opportunity. I think that not only the conservation authorities should be lobbying for more money, more support, like more base funding year over year, but this is an opportunity for the municipalities to get behind that and offer their support. So yeah, I agree totally. Why isn't the province stepping up? But they're not. And there's been no reasons. Well, there's been no reasons given why not at this point, but that's a question that needs to be asked.
How many staff would the Upper Thames Conservation Authority have? Like in the office roles that they need to fill to do this work? Would they have 12 people now, or how many people would they have there to begin with?
I'm going to say they have over 100, like the entire organization.
Just kind of the office staff that would be doing the work for these 9 new positions, like in that.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it won't be 100, but there'd probably be at least 12, I think. And I just can't remember the org chart off the top of my head, but it's more than just 1 or 2 people. There is a significant group in that section.
Okay, any further comments for Dean? Yep, Doug, go ahead.
Also, if every authority is looking for people with specific skill set to do these studies, what happens if they don't fill those positions? Then are they just going to consult that? Or are they going to just hire whoever? Or if they don't hire them, do they do the increase in their budget? Because if every municipality is going, or every water authority is looking for the same people to do the same thing, why aren't some of them combining the service? We share a fire chief. Why can't they share a mapper?
No, that's a good point. No, that's exactly the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Thanks, Councillor Phelps. Yeah, like why don't, like through Conservation Ontario, why don't they just pool resources and yeah, like share planners, like the way we do in the county system, share planners, share fire chief, And you're right, that there's going to be, like, the smaller conservation authorities probably won't see the need for more staffing, but the larger ones will, and they will all be competing for a finite number of employees. So I'll take that point. Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess it's a work in progress, Dean, and you'll just have to keep us tuned up to date what's happening, so. Update us at the next meeting if you wish. Okay, moving on, and the next item was left over from our last meeting because Doug wasn't here. This comes up from the Heritage and Culture Committee, so it's a campaign from another county, actually. So I'll let you talk to it if you wish. Doug.
Our last Heritage and Culture meeting, it was brought forward from the committee. So I'll just give you a brief overview. So it has to do with the residential school in Elgin County, which was built in 49. They had students transferred in 1950. Some of those students were from Stony Point, Kettle Point, who happens to be the tribe that we deal with here. They just thought it would be a nice gesture if they gave a donation. What they're trying to do is preserve the only building that's left from that site. And the reason being is there was a bunch of students have carved their names and stuff into beams, and they want to recognize it and convert it into a museum or something useful that would recognize the students that went there in Elgin. We really didn't know what the procedure was or direction was, so we brought it to council and see what their thoughts are and what they were. So that's it.
Okay, any questions for Doug on that? I know it's important probably to that particular area, but it is it's actually 2 counties away from where we are. But anyways, it is a cause. So what would you like to do? Andy?
Through your worship, it may be 2 counties away, but if this is the nearest example of the residential school system that we could donate to, well, then that's the one we donate to. I don't think the fact that it's 2 counties away really pertains to the issue. If people from 2 counties on the other side, or possibly people from right here, were going to it, this is the closest one, we should donate to it.
Okay, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Doug?
Just to clarify some of the history, the students were moved geographically away that they couldn't run home. So a lot of them, they were moved far enough away that they couldn't, is my understanding of it. So that's why some of them that they came from there, they went to Elgin or they shipped them somewhere they weren't close. So that was why they just didn't directly have one in town.
Hey, Councillor Duck.
Thanks. Doug, do they have any, like, are the different tiered donations they're looking for, similar to how we did the Ketterson, like, here, just any sort of contribution is okay. Thank you.
I can just add some clarification around policy. So as council is aware, we have our annual donation policy, which the deadline is approaching here. But staff have delegated authority for donations of up to $100. So we do have some budget that we haven't used from that standpoint. But staff weren't in a position, we felt, to just go ahead and make this donation. As Councillor Phelps said, we wanted to bring it to council, but just if that helps give a clarity on rough amount figures based on policy that we have in place.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So we're looking for direction here.
Through your worship, donation up to $100 is kind of insulting for this sort of thing. At a minimum of $1,000 is what we should be putting into an effort of this sort.
You want to make that a motion?
I would love to, but if I'm making it a motion, I'm gonna go for $2,000 because that's a little bit closer to what I think we should be putting in. 1,000 is more my notional minimum.
I'm pushing the wrong button here. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Do we have a seconder for that motion? Last call. Do we have a seconder? Well, the motion did not have a seconder, so it did not carry. So are you looking at something else? I'm looking. Councillor Duck?
I agree and I disagree with Andrew's comments. I think any donation shows that we're willing to contribute and work with somebody. I agree that $100 might be a little low, but 1,000 or 2,000 also seems a little high. So I would put a motion that we donate $500 towards the campaign and leave it at that.
Councillor Duck is moving that we donate $500. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Moved by Councillor Duck, seconded by Councillor Fournier. Okay. Any further discussion on that? All right, Nicholas?
Would we have $500 through the clerk or through you, worship, the clerk still sitting in unallocated donations from last year?
I'm looking at the treasurer and she's nodding her head horizontally.
I think we budgeted 30,200 and those funds were allocated to the community groups. And we haven't sent checks out because some of the agreements need to be fulfilled for that. So that was the budget number, 30,200. And I think all of it was allocated.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Councillor Phelps.
Could we maybe amend that, pardon me, to the 2024 donations budget? There's no real timeline or what they're doing. And at that time, we can budget that amount in and go through our donations and see if it's on our priority.
Or why don't we just defer it to budget discussions for 2024 and leave your amount out for now if you want. Andrew?
Yeah, again, through your worship, just post date it. You can post date a check for up to 6 months. If we agree that this is the first $500 of our donation budget for 24, boom, done.
Sounds good. What's your wishes?
If I may, I think Councillor Phelps' amendment would be cleanest for us from a procedural standpoint. To amend the donation budget for the 2024.
To clarify then, are we putting a dollar amount in there or are we leaving that for next year's budget discussions? Okay.
Should, and the other thing with the post dated check is they can cash that tomorrow. So then it's going to come out of this year's budget anyways. The date doesn't matter. So if we move it to the defer to that 2024 budget, because we have said no to other asks that weren't budgeted this year. And I think that's a fair thing to do, that we'll look at it 2024 and put it on that donation list. If that's
Yep. Is that okay with the
acceptable?
mover and seconder?
Yeah, I think that's more than reasonable.
All right. Any further discussion on that? Okay.
Just procedurally, we should get a seconder for.
Well, we did. Ryan moved it and Andrew seconded it.
For the amendment.
Oh, okay. So,
Councillor Phelps has made the
so we need another seconder. Take your pick, Councillor Foster.
And then we would vote on the amendment and then vote on the main.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment. That's to defer it until budget discussions. So all those in favor of that? That is opposed, any? That's carried. So then now on the original motion, quick. All those in favor?
For the amended.
Or the amended motion. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Okay. All right, we do have two bylaws. Yes, we have two bylaws. Bylaw 58 is a bylaw to exempt the part lot control 44M35, lot 12. Plan 339, part Whipple Street, and RP 44R 6036, part 3, in the Mitchell Ward, Municipality of West Perth, and bylaw 50. Oh, we got more than two here. It's 2 pages stuck together. Bylaw 58-9 is a bylaw to stop up and close a portion of public highway known as Georgina Street. Bylaw 60 is a collection of actual costs for drainage works known as the Snyder's Colkman Drain. Bylaw 61 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 33 to provide for the collection of actual costs on the Murphy Municipal Drain. So the recommendation that we have is that the Council Municipality of West Perth give first, second reading to bylaw 58, 59, 60, and 61 the 16th day of October. Do we have a mover and seconder for 2 readings? Councillor Chessel, Councillor O'Donnell, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? And the final recommendation then is that the municipality of West Perth give third and final reading to bylaw 58, 59, 60, and 61 the 16th day of October. So third and final reading. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Phelps. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Announcements are there. November the 6th is our next meeting. We'll likely get more information with regards to Remembrance Day, but you usually meet at the Legion at roughly a little bit before 10:30 and pick up your wreath. Well, that's about 10:30, isn't it? And you will leave at 10:30 and they'll march you down to Senate and dress warm as a rule. Yeah. Any notices of motion? Don't think so. Any other business? We do have a closed session. Municipality of West Perth proceed to closed session at 8:43 for the purpose of addressing a matter related to trade secrets or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality with regards to Earth Power. So a motion that we go into closed session at 8:44. Moved by Councillor Vink, second by Councillor Harold. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? We're carried. And we're in closed session. I think we can stay here. I don't Good. Okay, we're back out of closed session. We just had a brief closed session with an update of activities happening at Earth Power and with what's all progressing and happening there. Okay, so I don't think we have anything else at this particular time. So yeah, we have a confirmatory bylaw that bylaw number 62 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, the corporation, municipality of West Perth be read a first and second time the 16th day of October. Mover and seconder for that. Councillor Harold, Councillor Phelps, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And bylaw 62 being read third time to confirm the proceedings of the council, corporation, and the municipality of West Perth. Mover and seconder for that, Deputy Mayor Kinkowski and Councillor Duck. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And finally, a recommendation that the municipality of West Perth adjourn the council meeting at 8:54 p.m. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Fournier. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, we are adjourned. Thank you.